episode, but do you think you could prove that you're mentally sane? Or mentally, not insane, not mentally unwell or anything like that?
I think it might be one of those things where if I just kept quiet, I'd stand a better chance than trying to explain it. I feel like my explanation would give me away.
Okay, well, yeah, but this is the problem, right? It's very subjective, isn't it? Like, what one person, like mental health is sort of like a spectrum, isn't it? So what one doctor might think is, unfit, another doctor might think that's, it's like what one doctor might diagnose somebody with depression, another doctor might say, oh, you're just a bit sad, walk it off, whatever.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's a bad doctor, but...
Yeah. But being able to prove it. So, this is exactly what Stanford professor in 1973, he's called David Rosenhan, and, well, this was called the Rosenhan Experiment for obvious reasons. And he was a professor of psychology at Stanford University, and he wanted to test how good US psychiatric hospitals were at diagnosis. So what he did was he and 7 others who had no history of mental illness or anything like that, they were all, as far as had been proven, all that, were mentally sound. They all feigned auditory hallucinations, and then all 8 of them ended up being admitted to different hospitals. And he wanted to try like a spectrum of hospitals. So some of them tried it at tried it at sort of high-end private clinics, and some at more, state-run, the cheap ones, basically. Yeah.
Not if I can just jump in slightly, not to ruin it. Did they have like a get-out clause, or like did it only work if the hospitals didn't know anything about it? Because like you don't want to accidentally be in there forever.
Well,
so
yeah.
You might need a letter to prove it.
Yeah. So you're jumping ahead slightly there, but I'll forgive you. So they had a lawyer on standby for the entire thing to be able to call. None of them were. In the end, none of it was needed. So let me say. So obviously, they feigned auditory hallucinations, got sectioned and admitted into hospital, and then once they were in, they all acted normal. They even took notes on why they were there. They told the doctors, they just acted normally. They stopped, they feigned hallucinations to get in, but after that, they didn't do it anymore. Mm-hmm. And some even took notes on whilst they were there. Yet all 8 of them were still diagnosed with a mental illness. Most of them were diagnosed with schizophrenia. Some were diagnosed with something else, some other conditions, but that was the one that I think 5 out of the 8 or 6 out of the 8 got diagnosed with. But what was interesting as well is other patients clocked on that they were faking or, weren't there. Apparently other patients thought they were, could tell they didn't belong there, but doctors still insisted that they were. And in the end, they were all given antipsychosis medicines, although they flushed them away. They all had to admit that they had mental illness and before they were allowed to be discharged. And so they all had to admit it. And the average length of stay was 19 days.
Yikes.
So, yeah. So average, and none of them had any actual thing, actual mental illnesses. But then it gets weirder, right? So that was part 1 of his experiment. So he published his findings, and obviously it caused quite a stir amongst like the medical profession. And a hospital that wasn't involved in the original experiment then got in touch with Rosenhan and basically said, we're better than all those other hospitals, like, you've chosen bad ones deliberately. And they were said, our doctors won't fall for that. We've trained them. We can, we know they won't be able to spot fakers. Mm-hmm. So Rosenhan and this hospital came to, had an agreement, and Rosenhan said over the next 3 months, he'd send 1 or more pseudo patients again, one or more fakers to this hospital, and it would be up to the hospital to try and spot them. And
sort of like a mystery shopper.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's a great analogy. Yeah, he's going to mystery shop them.
Yeah.
There were 193 patients admitted over this 3-month time span, and the hospital, at the end of it, the hospital got in touch and said, "We've identified 41 pseudo patients for definite, and we suspect another 42 might be." So almost half the patients. Yeah. Turns out, and here's the kicker, Rosenhan didn't send any. There were 0 mystery shoppers, and yet this hospital, which claimed they could spot fakers, undiagnosed. I don't know what you're going to say. Undiagnosed half of them.
Yikes! That's. I mean, if your first topic was about someone with like the confidence but pulled something off, this guy coming in like, we've found 41 for absolute definite, and then
that's awkward. I mean, I don't know what they did with them because that's not covered in what I was reading. But did they turn away 41 patients who needed help? Did they keep 41 patients and been like, "All right, we think you're faking, but we're still going to keep you hostage for 3 months"?
If you go for genuine help and they go, we know what you're up to, it's going to make you feel so paranoid.
Which wouldn't help?
Yeah, well, I guess. Yeah.